I analyzed over 1,000 Capablanca games and found 85 cases where his knight was pinned like this. He had 5 main ways to respond, and one of them scored an incredible 87% win rate. In this video, I'll show which method worked best and what you can learn from it. Here's the thing, in such positions, most of us just play bishop e2 to neutralize the pin, and while it's an okay move, it is also somewhat passive and defensive. One of the ways that Capablanca used that was really surprising is that he kind of ignored the pin and just continued his normal development, and with that he scored 75% win rate, which is already very impressive. Now here Black can choose different options to play, and we're gonna go through them so that you see how different scenarios can unfold, and of course it won't apply just to this position but to any other situations where your knight is pinned like that. For example, let's say your opponent also wants to just continue his development, and in that case you don't even have to worry about this pin because you can turn the tables and use this pin against your opponent. You can sacrifice your bishop, and after that you can use the fact that this pin is undefended, this bishop, and you can jump with your knight forward, deliver in this check, and you simultaneously turn this pin around. Previously it was the bishop that was hitting the queen, and now it's the other way around. On the next turn, you get the bishop, and now you've won this pawn on f7, you've exposed his king, you have this excellent square for your knight or queen, and you've got a very dominant position. Alright, moving on to the second scenario. What if instead Black develops this knight, which also protects the bishop, and therefore the previous tactic would not work here? And by the way, while I said that Capablanca ignored the pin, it's not entirely accurate. I would say that it is rather that he delayed it for a few moves. He did not overreact, because right now there is no immediate danger to white, and therefore you don't have to fix what's not broken. He just waited several more moves till he could see what's the best way to handle this pin. And in this case, that sacrifice actually still works, but just the follow-up is different. Now it's not knight to g5, that would be bad because the black bishop is guarded. You cannot take it. But knight to e5 in this case is possible, and again, thanks to the fact that this other knight of black is not there. So now knight e5 comes with this double attack, and once the king moves, you now grab this bishop, and you achieve a similar outcome where you've exposed his king, won this pawn, and also kind of bamboozle black with this pin. There is also one more way to ignore this pin, and it is to literally ignore it and just jump with your knight forward. And by the way, please don't write in comments, if I ever blunder my queen again, I'll just say that Igor told me to ignore the pin. Guys, I'm watching you. So here, you're actually countering this bishop, but if it captures your queen, that leads to this sudden checkmate. And you may be thinking Black does not have to cooperate, and it is true, but even if Black retreats the bishop back, it is certainly much better. It does not lose the bishop and prevents the checkmate. After this trade, his position is still ruined because his king is exposed. These pawns are doubled, they're weak, you can attack them down the line, across this e-file, and also it is really hard to get his pieces out of the game and to continue his development. By the way, if you're wondering how we even got to that position, it came out of the Scandinavian defense, and now Black often pins your knight like this. And so here there was this interesting idea that you can actually ignore this pin for some time. And another benefit of procrastination is that sometimes the problem will just stop being a problem by itself. Here, the second most played move by Black is actually bishop takes f3, where your opponent chickens out and, trades off himself. And now after this trade, that is actually really great for you, because you didn't waste time defending against the pin, and in the meantime, you just developed all your pieces. And now queen takes f7 coming, almost colorless checkmate, because your bishop eyes this square just as well. But if Black covers that somehow, then your queen also eyes in this direction. You can grab this pawn, attack the rook. You've got various other attacking ideas with the bishop or with the knight jumping out there, and you've already having a winning position. Now we're getting to a really juicy part of our research on Capablanca. What if Black plays the correct move and they shut down your bishop and there is no tactics anymore? Therefore, you actually have to deal with this pin now. Now, this method is what brought Capablanca 87% win rate. Just think about it. This is absolutely mind-boggling. And it is a pawn attack where he attacks this bishop and forces it to come back. But there are a few very important caveats. Now here, if Black captures, we already know that it's not a problem. He'll just waste his time running around and only trading it off and helping you to develop your queen. And most of the time, they will retreat back, trying to insist on this pin. But now pawn to g4 breaks the pin for good, pushing the bishop back. And now, this h3 and g4 idea in itself is fairly obvious. You may say like, yeah, beginners know this, right? What's so special about it? Yes, but I would say that you gotta understand it deeper. Only then it is really that effective. Because if not, you can end up ruining your position, weakening your king, weakening your potential castling, and just it will backfire, right? So the first thing is that it actually kicks this bishop out of the game. And very often Capablanca used this strategically to restrict the bishop, to play something like pawn to d3, and now just look at this bishop. Where can it possibly go? Can't go here, can't go here, and cannot go here. Literally, it has no moves. And that's how you strategically put your pawns to restrict this bishop and put it out of game. That's one very interesting idea that Capablanca used. But the other idea, which is more aggressive one, is to play something like queen a2, initially preparing to potentially castle queenside in the long run, because your kingside position has already been weakened, and it's also very important to play this before you castle. Otherwise, your king would be very exposed there, and you don't want this. But also, the main real plan here is just to keep pushing these pawns forward. And now, instead of being attacked by this bishop, you actually turn things around, and now you begin attacking this bishop, and you want to capture it. If black tries to provide an escape square, of course they can, but now you keep pushing forward. And what it does is that you keep attacking with the tempo, and now you can use these pawns potentially, to attack either his bishop or his knight, and to gain this massive initiative with the tempo, without slowing down, and that is why he got such a huge win rate with it. And here, in positions like that, here you can even sacrifice the knight and just to finish it off right away. We just get to the king, he must take it because, it forks everything, but then we pull the king out, now queen takes e6, almost a checkmate, the king can still escape, and there are different ways to win the game here because the king is still exposed. The most sadistic one is probably to play h5 first, and after the king has to come forward, then a lot of players play d4 as their first move, but of course it's much cooler when you make it your last move. By the way, if you want to find strong combinations in your actual games, not only in tactical puzzles, I break down the exact thinking process strong players use in my free masterclass. I'll link it down below. So far we talked about that one position as an example, but of course it will work across any other positions as well. Let's say you're playing this position as black. Now what should you do here? A lot of players, they just are afraid of this pin and they start playing h6 themselves, trying to prevent this. But Capablanca took it to another level. He wasn't against them playing bishop g5 because he knew how to handle it really effectively. And now the one thing is you don't castle too early, because you know that it could be that you might need to push these pawns forward and you don't want your king to stand behind them. So here you can just play d6, play a useful move, and wait for white to make their decision. And if white indeed plays bishop g5 to pin your knight, now you can start utilizing this plan. Pawn h6, kicking it out, and then continue with pawn to g5, kicking the bishop all the way back to g3. Now at this point there is another interesting thing. Capablanca also often paired it with his awaiting strategy, just waiting to what to do next. Because yes, you can potentially just keep pushing pawns forward, going into this aggressive but also risky attack, but sometimes it makes sense to see whether it's really suitable or not. Because right now the good thing that we achieved here is that this bishop is imprisoned, it just can't get out, can't move at all, which is already nice. And here Capablanca used to play bishop g4, making that pin himself, and now also restricting this knight. Therefore now both the bishop and the knight, now none of them can actually make a move. White is totally restricted. And if white does nothing special, maybe you can play knight d4 and keep putting even more pressure. And on the other hand, if white castles kingside, then at that moment you can decide, alright, now it's good to actually transition into this full-blown attack on the kingside because his king is there, and now this pawn storm makes even more sense. Let's say if white tries to kick your bishop out, of course you can just trade or retreat, but you can even just keep attacking and counter-attacking, because here the good thing is, now if he takes and you recapture, your rook on h8 starts playing really well there. Also, your bishop on c5 is pinning this pawn. It cannot take your pawn, therefore he'll have to do something else. And white may still be optimistic because of this knight to g5 trick. It looks like he grabs a pawn and he attacks you, but what he underestimates here is that this h-file is just really strong. And all you gotta do is to bring your queen there, and that will lead to a quick checkmate. And therefore, you can just get this knight out of the way somewhere to open up this diagonal for your queen, and white is cooked, right? So white does whatever, they capture this knight, or they take here, thinking that they complicate matters, but same move, queen h4 basically wins the game, or in this case you can sack the rook to make it with a tempo, then queen h4, and you just finish the game. Here's another game. Here Capablanca is playing black against Nimzowitsch, another famous player of the past. And you may be wondering, if this g5 idea is just so good, then why don't I simply play it all the time? Well, because it's not always the best. Yes, it is the most aggressive one, but sometimes it can backfire. And here black needs to be careful because not only this knight is pinned, but also the second knight is pinned just as well. And therefore black really needs to watch over the situation and find some safe spot for his king. By the way, let's have a quick quiz here. You have 3 attempts to guess Capablanca's next move. Write it down in comments below, pause the video if you need to, and after that we'll come back. Now, Capablanca did something very interesting here, but before we understand his move, before we understand how to defend against a pin, you have to first understand what is the real threat. So let's take a look at that first, and after that we'll come back to this position. This time Capablanca was playing white, and let's see how he utilized the pin himself. Here we see this pin on the black knight, but also black has a similar pin to the white queen. In fact, the black player was a perfect copycat and he just copied all the moves of Capablanca. So here, how do you use this pin? How do you use the power of the pin? And because in itself, there is no problem here, right? There is no threat. You have to double down on this pin. You have to bring one more attacker. And this is what Capablanca did with knight to d5, which puts pressure to this knight and also attacks the bishop on b4. But black didn't shy away from copying that move as well and goes knight d4, trying to pursue a similar idea, attacking this one and the bishop on b5. Then Capablanca took the bishop, black did the same. Now Capablanca returned the knight back to d5 to again establish this pressure on the knight. Black just keeps repeating the same stuff. And what do you do then? Like, sure, you can take here either with a knight or with a bishop. This would force black to recapture with a pawn, which would double his pawns and open up his king. But nevertheless, that is just a little pawn weakness. It's very far from, being a defeat for black. So you need one more attacker. And for that, Capablanca played queen d2. His idea here really was that, after black copied that move just as well, that here after bishop takes f6, now we're ready to engage our queen along this diagonal, and then your attack can become really deadly. Now, black, of course, tried the same thing, but now Capablanca played knight to e7, and here black realized a fatal flaw of his strategy. He could not copy a counter check, which made him move the king, but now Capablanca sacked the bishop, continued with this check, and then a checkmate. Back to the previous example, Nimzowitsch against Capablanca, who is playing black here. Capablanca first decided to realize which pin is actually a problem. Think about this pin for a second. Is that a problem or not for black? Not really, because if white captures, you just recapture, right? There is no issue. And we know that the real issue comes if white can bring up one more piece to intensify a threat to this knight. But in this case, there is no way for white to do that. Now, how about this knight? Well, that pin is more annoying because white can jump with his knight forward and add one more attacker to the knight. So that is the real issue behind it, because again, the pin in itself is not a problem. Right? There is no threat at the moment. If white captures, you just recapture. That's not a problem. Knight d5 is the only move that really is annoying. And yes, you can capture it with the bishop, but white will recapture with a pawn, attack your other knight, and so that is a problem. And in light of that, to slow this thing down, Capablanca played bishop b4. I don't know if you could guess this move or not, but it's a pretty sophisticated one, right? You have to really understand this thing deeply. By the way, computer loves this move, but for a human, it's obviously so cool to think about it. Now, here Nimzowitsch played d4. He's still trying to make use of the other pin this way. And now Capablanca again was at the crossroad. He realized that yes, I can take here, but that would actually help white to bring in that extra attacker and make it a problem. And because of that, he now finally used the way that we all use, like the most simplistic, the most obvious way to interpose a bishop, right? The fourth way of handling the pain. And this is something that we basically use exclusively, but we see that Capablanca knew 5 ways, and he also looked at which way is the most suitable for the given situation. Now, since white now cannot do anything really, he just castled, and now Capablanca traded off this knight, because after the castling, the knight was free to go here. There's no pin anymore, therefore that was the right time to capture it, and now he realized that now he can finally fight back. When he stabilized the situation in the middle of the board, now he kicks this bishop out, and after the bishop retreats back to g3, now he could capture this pawn on e4, and he went on the offense. So from here, we're already capturing a pawn, we're putting pressure to this one, also putting pressure to this pawn. From there, it's going to attack the queen and the bishop, and he basically turned the tables and went on to win this game later. And it's also very interesting how he mixed these different ways to handle the pin and use them all together without really defending too much, but also attacking his opponent. In this case, Capablanca is playing white against his long-term rival, Frank Marshall. They played a number of beautiful games against each other, and now Capablanca is faced with the same pin. black has just played bishop g4. Now, what we do here as white? It's interesting that although I'm showing you different win rates for these different options that Capablanca used, it looks like one option is just better, more effective than the other one. But in reality, it rather depends on the position, on circumstances. Because here, for example, yes, there is this pin. And should Capablanca go for h3 and then g4? I mean, probably not in this case, because in this case, he would overextend himself too much. He advanced pawns all over the board, in the center, kingside, and queenside. And in that case, it's going to be really hard for him to find any safe spot for his king. And therefore, although this plan traditionally brought him the highest success rate, but in this case, it's just not very suitable. Now, what else could he play? There are no tactical shots. Retreating the bishop back to e2 is just very passive. And then he used the fifth method, which is to reinforce this knight by the other one. And now, since the knight is defended, your queen is always free to go anytime you want to. Your queen can just step out of this pin. And this tension is not a problem, because if black ever captures there, you don't have to ruin your pawn structure, you will simply recapture with the other knight. And this idea is also one of the easiest ways to handle the pin without limiting yourself by putting this bishop to this very passive square e2, where it only performs a defensive role. Now we keep this bishop to an active position, we do our own thing, and this knight needs to be developed anyway, while reinforcing the other one. Alright, the game goes on. Now Capablanca simply castles, rook to e1, and now he also demonstrates another very interesting idea. Besides just defending this knight, you can also redeploy the knight either this way or that way. In this case, we start using this bishop as an object for our attack, which is very interesting. That is also how we slowly but surely turn the tables. Now black is trying to push the f pawn forward to make use of the pin, to activate his rook, maybe to go knight to g5 and to launch that kingside attack. But Capablanca is in time, he goes knight e3, hitting this bishop, and as it goes back, now his position is so strong that he even went for g4. Just this complete assault, playing this g4 move. But now the issue is, yes, the bishop is now locked there on the king side, and now white totally controls this square, and the knight finally lands right there. And now the knight is on such a dominant position, all over the place, very hard for black to move around because this knight controls everything, pretty much everything. But if black ever captures the knight, then it makes it even worse for black, because now this g file is getting open, and white can move the king right here, then bring the rook to g1, and begin attacking there. We also have our dark square bishop, and this pawn f5 is also very active. That is also how easily he kind of made this pin backfire for his opponent. And if you want to see the full game Capablanca against Marshall, because it is really very interesting, one of the most intriguing and exciting games in chess history, without exaggeration, check it out right here.